After 8 years of living off the very house I bought, my son and daughter-in-law suddenly won $92 million. But instead of being grateful for the shelter I gave them, by noon that day, my daughter-in-law had cruelly thrown all my belongings onto the street, dishes shattering on the sidewalk while she screamed, "We don't need to do charity for you anymore. Go die old in a nursing home." I stood in the yard, clothes dusty and wrinkled, my heartbeat steady, and quietly said, "Did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" Her victorious smile froze for a split second, and soon that single question would make her glittering world collapse for good. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey, and if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. I'm Margaret Thornton, 65 years old, a widow for nearly a decade. Since Robert passed, the Victorian house in Mount Pleasant, Charleston, became my only refuge, and then my son David's as well, along with his sharp-tongued wife, Vanessa. The house stands on a quiet street lined with magnolia trees, white paint peeling slightly at the corners, wraparound porch where Rob and I used to sit every Sunday evening with bowls of his famous she-crab soup. He'd laugh at my terrible jokes, and I'd pretend his soup wasn't too salty. Those were the days when the house felt alive, when love soaked into the wooden floors and hung in the air like the scent of jasmine in spring. After Rob died, the silence was so thick I could hear my own heartbeat echo through the empty rooms. I missed everything about him. The way he'd hum old jazz tunes while fixing the porch railing. The way he'd squeeze my hand 3 times before bed. Our secret code for I love you. Widowhood at 55 taught me to speak less and keep small rituals to feel like he was still around. I'd pour 2 cups of coffee each morning, one for me and one for his memory. I'd straighten the armchair by the fireplace where he used to read the paper. Sometimes I'd whisper, "I'm okay, Rob," just to hear my own voice break the stillness. Then one February night, 8 years ago, a storm rolled in from the Atlantic, rain hammering the windows like fists demanding entry. I was upstairs folding laundry when I heard a knock at the door, hesitant and desperate. I came down, barefoot on the cold hardwood, and opened the door to find David standing there, soaked to the bone, gripping a battered suitcase. Behind him stood Vanessa, makeup smeared, eyes red and swollen, one hand cradling her pregnant belly. "Mom," David said, voice cracking, "we lost the apartment. My company folded. The landlord wants 3 months' rent now. We can't swing it." I didn't ask questions. I didn't hesitate. I just stepped aside and said, "Come in. This house always has room for you." Vanessa thanked me, voice trembling, and I thought I saw genuine gratitude in her eyes. She was young, beautiful, and knew how to draw sympathy like a magnet. That night, I believed I was doing the right thing. I couldn't have imagined that David's just a few months would stretch into 8 long years. 8 years of becoming the help in the very house with my name on the deed. At first, things seemed fine. I gave them the big bedroom downstairs, the one Rob loved for its east-facing windows. "Morning sun is good for the baby," I told them. David squeezed my hand and smiled. "Thanks, Mom. I'll pay you back soon." But soon never came. After Lily was born, then Noah 2 years later. Vanessa didn't return to work. David bounced between part-time engineering gigs, some months bringing home nothing. I covered every utility bill, groceries, and the homeowner's insurance with my teacher's pension and what little savings Rob had left. I didn't regret it. I believed family love balances itself, that when they got stable, they'd lift me up in return. But balance never came. Instead, I slowly became invisible in my own home. Mornings. I woke at 5, made breakfast for everyone, packed David's lunch, and walked Lily to preschool when she was old enough. Afternoons, I did laundry, cooked dinner, and rocked Noah to sleep while humming the same lullabies I'd sung to David decades ago. Everything ran like a clock I wound with my own hands. I told myself it was temporary, that soon they'd stand on their own feet and remember the woman who held them up when they were falling. But temporary became permanent, and gratitude became entitlement. One day, about a year after they moved in, Vanessa said, "Mom, I need a quiet place to work. My old company's letting me do consulting from home. Maybe you could move up to the attic. I'll turn your room into a home office." I hesitated. The attic was a storage space, low ceiling, sweltering in summer, freezing in winter, but she said it in that syrupy tone that made refusal seem selfish. "It's more private up there. You can rest without the kids making noise." I forced a smile. "If it's convenient for you, do it." I didn't know that decision would push me to the top floor of my own house and push me out of the role of mother in my own family. From then on, I officially became Miss Margaret upstairs. Vanessa reorganized the kitchen and labeled everything. Top shelf for the kids, bottom shelf for David's snacks. "That cabinet is where you can keep your tea." I didn't object, but I felt like a boarder paying rent in a house I owned outright. That winter, Vanessa started hosting adults-only dinners. I still cooked and set the table, arranging the good china Rob and I received as wedding gifts, polishing the silverware until it gleamed. But when dinner began, Vanessa would smile sweetly and say, "Mom, I saved you a plate in the kitchen. We need to discuss work." I'd step out, close the kitchen door, and eat alone under the yellow light. Listening to laughter and clinking glasses from the other side of the wall, I kept telling myself it was fine. They're young. They have their own lives. I just need to stay quiet. But silence, when held long enough, becomes shackles. When Lily started talking, Vanessa taught her to call me Miss Margaret instead of Grandma. "Grandma sounds odd." "Mom," she said, "Miss Margaret is younger and more polite." I laughed it off. But that night I cried in the bathroom, gripping the sink until my knuckles went white. The next morning, I still made my granddaughter's milk as if nothing had happened, because that's what mothers do. We swallow our pain so our children don't have to taste it. By the third year, David switched to part-time engineering work. I asked about his pay. He avoided my eyes. "Enough to get by, Mom." I knew it wasn't true, but I didn't press. When your child looks down out of shame, a mother often chooses to pretend not to see. I kept paying for electricity, water, health insurance, and sometimes slipped extra cash into envelopes for Lily's preschool tuition. I told myself I could shoulder it as long as they stayed afloat. By the fourth year, Vanessa began setting rules. "Mom, no sweets for the kids at night. Mom, the house needs to be spotless. Guests are coming. Mom, towels should be folded this way, not the old way." Each thing sounded small, but together they cut like 1,000 paper knives. I listened. I obeyed. I swallowed it all. Once, I made Rob's famous she-crab soup, the one he perfected over 30 years of Sunday evenings. The smell of crab, cream, and sherry filled the kitchen, and for a moment, the house felt alive again. David breathed in deeply. "Man, it's been a while." Vanessa frowned. "Shellfish is full of cholesterol." "David, you don't want to die young like your dad, do you?" The table fell silent. I looked down at my plate and murmured, "Your dad ate this until 87 and was still healthy." She smirked. "Different times, Mom." After that dinner, I understood. In this house, I was no longer allowed to cook from memory. My past, my traditions, my love, all of it had become inconvenient. David wasn't heartless, just weak. When I said Vanessa was going too far, he sighed. "She's under a lot of pressure. Mom, I'm gone all day and she's home with 2 kids, taking care of the whole house." I wanted to say, But who's been taking care of this house for 8 years? Who wakes at 5 every morning? Who pays the bills when your paychecks don't come? But I didn't. Sometimes love means biting your tongue until it bleeds. I also kept helping others, because that's who I'd always been. I helped Dorothy Martinez, my neighbor of 28 years, repair her fence after a storm. I brought sandwiches to the homeless man who sat on the corner near the bakery. I volunteered at the church with Pastor Williams, folding bulletins and arranging flowers for Sunday services. Vanessa never noticed. To her, I was invisible unless she needed something. One spring morning, I was hanging laundry in the backyard when I heard Vanessa in the kitchen talking to David. Do you know how people see us? A married couple living off his old mother. I want a place of our own, but Mom pays the homeowner's insurance here. Selling's not that simple. David's voice was low. Then have her sign the transfer. She doesn't need a big house anyway. I stood behind the curtain, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the sudden, crushing realization that I'd given them too much, piece by piece, year by year, until they believed everything they had was theirs by right. That summer, I started journaling every night. I opened an old leather notebook Rob had given me for our 20th anniversary. The first line was always the same: Day of Patience. I didn't write much more, just small notes. Vanessa nagged about towels. David forgot to pick up Lily. Noah was sick. I stayed up all night. Tiny crooked lines, like the trace of someone fading from her own life. Even so, one thing in me never went out: tenderness. I loved David, the boy who used to carry me piggyback when my back hurt. I loved Lily and Noah, who laughed every time I baked chocolate chip cookies. I even loved Vanessa, though she hurt me, because I believed people can change. I believed that one day they'd understand I did everything out of love. But patience has limits. And what broke mine wasn't a big fight. It was something so small that if I told it, people might think I was overreacting. Yet I remember that afternoon perfectly. Sunlight slanting through the kitchen window, the scent of magnolia drifting in from the yard, and Vanessa saying one sentence that completely shattered my endurance. Lily's 9th birthday came on a bright April day. The yard was filled with the scent of blooming azaleas. I still remember her eyes when she pointed at the display in the sporting goods store downtown. A coral pink bicycle with a cream-colored wicker basket and shimmering streamers trailing from the handlebars. "Grandma," she whispered, tugging my sleeve. "If I had that bike, I'd never be late for school again." She beamed, and my heart melted. I knew the price: $215, almost all of what was left of my pension after paying that month's bills. I hesitated many times, standing in that store aisle, calculator in hand, adding and subtracting. But then I thought, she's only 9 once. Sometimes one gift can make a childhood feel complete. I saved every spare coin, cut my spending for weeks, even gave up my morning coffee at the cafe I loved. 3 days before Lily's birthday, I quietly walked back to that shop. The clerk, a young man with kind eyes, helped me pick the exact coral pink bike she loved. I asked for silver wrapping paper with sunflowers printed on it, tied with a cream ribbon. When the paper caught the sunlight, I smiled, picturing my granddaughter's shining face. I hid the bike in the garage and threw an old cloth over it. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying the moment she'd see it. Rob would have smiled if he were still here, he used to say. Sometimes the smallest gift becomes the biggest memory. On the morning of her birthday, I got up earlier than usual. I made heart-shaped pancakes topped with strawberries and whipped cream. The kitchen smelled wonderful. I hung a few balloons by the window and set a vase of white roses in the center of the table. The house rarely felt that cheerful. I put on the old blue dress Rob once complimented and felt a few years younger. Lily ran down the stairs, blonde pigtails bouncing, clapping, and singing. "It's my birthday. Grandma, You remembered. I opened my arms and hugged her. Of course, sweetheart, I have a surprise for you. I hadn't finished the sentence when Vanessa walked in, still in wrinkled pajamas, hair pinned high. She looked around, frowning at the balloons and strawberries. Mom, what is all this? I answered gently. It's just breakfast for Lily. It didn't cost much. She opened the fridge, poured a glass of orange juice, then turned back, voice dripping with false sweetness. You know, David and I already agreed this year we want to teach her about saving. No expensive gifts. We want her to understand the value of money. I looked at Lily and saw her smile dim like a candle snuffed out. I tried to stay calm. Don't worry. I only got a small present. Nothing extravagant. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Small, huh? We'll see. That afternoon, when David brought the kids home from school, I took out the garage key. Lily, come here with Grandma. I called. She ran over, eyes lighting up as I pulled back the cloth to reveal the shimmering coral pink bike. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful, Lily gasped, almost breathless. Is it really mine? Grandma? I nodded, eyes stinging. Happy birthday, my little angel. She threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. My heart melted with happiness. But the moment lasted only seconds. Vanessa's voice cut in behind us, cold as steel. What is this? She came closer, eyes raking over the bike, then stared straight at me. I told you, Mom, no expensive gifts. I stayed calm. It's just a bike. Vanessa. She's dreamed about it all year. That's not the point, she snapped. The point is you're breaking our parenting rules. I repeated with a small smile. I don't recall love having rules. She stepped in, voice low and sharp as a blade. You did this just to show the kids you're better than me, didn't you? David chimed in weakly. Vanessa, don't be ridiculous. But his voice carried no weight. I looked at her calmly. I did it because I love my granddaughter. That's all. Lily gripped my hand, frightened by her parents arguing. Mom, please, I'll clean the bike myself. I won't ask for any more presents, she sobbed. But Vanessa just sighed, then crouched to Lily's eye level. Sweetie, we just want you to learn to appreciate things. This bike isn't right. Grandma will return it, and then you'll understand why grown-ups have to save. No! Lily burst into tears. I held her, feeling her little heart thudding against my chest. That's enough, Vanessa, I said, my voice tight. If you want to teach a lesson, use your own money, not her joy. She pressed her lips together and pulled out her phone. Mom, return the bike or I will. I'm not joking. That afternoon, I walked the bike back to the store, each step heavy as stone. The wind rustled through the trees, making the cream ribbon flutter and whisper like Lily's laughter that morning. I took one last look before stepping inside and drew a deep breath. I'd like to return this bike, I told the young clerk. Are you sure, ma'am? It's our last one. Yes. The little girl changed her mind. When I signed the refund slip, my hand shook so much the ink smeared. I folded the receipt and tucked it into my wallet. As I left, a light rain started. Cold drops hit my cheeks, mixing with the salty taste at the corner of my mouth. That night, the house was quiet. No cake, no candles, just the television murmuring in the living room. I set out the small vanilla butter cake I'd already bought on the kitchen table and placed the card I'd written. Happy birthday, Lily. Love you always, Grandma. Then I lit a tiny candle and watched it burn down, the flicker reflecting on Rob's photo hanging on the wall. Do you see this, some Rob? I whispered. Our granddaughter isn't allowed to receive a bicycle because of a lesson on saving. I don't have enough say in my own house anymore. I stood, put on my coat, and stepped outside. The March night was colder than I expected. The corner store cast a dim yellow glow, the one where I usually bought milk. I had no plan, just knew I needed air. The shop was nearly empty. The owner, Mr. O'Brien, a familiar Irish gentleman with kind eyes and a thick accent, smiled. "Cold night, Miss Margaret. Still want coffee?" I shook my head. Then my eyes stopped at the lottery counter next to the register. A small sign read, "Jackpot tonight, $92 million. I gave a tired smile. "One ticket, please." With these numbers, I slowly read the familiar sequence. 8, 15, 22, 29, 33, 42, 48. Birthdays for Rob, me, David, Lily, and Noah. The numbers I'd played for 18 years. An old habit that never meant much. I pulled out a pen and signed the back, Margaret Thornton. Rob's old rule echoed in my mind. Always sign your name and keep the receipt. Maggie. People can argue plenty, but they can't fake a signature. I smiled at Mr. O'Brien and slid the ticket and receipt into my coat pocket. "I could use a little luck tonight," he replied. "Hope you get what you're wishing for." On the way home, I looked at the lit windows in the dark and wondered how many people inside were as tired as I was, still trying to believe in good, even when hurt by their own family. I wasn't hoping for wealth. I was asking for one simple thing, a way out. When I got home, I placed the ticket and receipt on the kitchen table, right where anyone could see, as if laying down a quiet prayer to the universe. Then I went up to the attic and listened to the rain tapping on the roof. The next morning, as the first light slipped through the window, I heard Vanessa shriek downstairs, her voice high with excitement. "David, wake up now, we won!" Rushed footsteps, then a burst of laughter, quick kisses, a chair scraping. $92 million! Oh my God, we won $92 million! I sat up, heart pounding. I didn't need to look to know which ticket they were holding. I stepped onto the stairs and looked down at a scene both familiar and strange. Vanessa clinging to David, tears of joy streaming down her face. The ticket held high, the ticket I had bought. "I can't believe it," Vanessa yelled, buzzing with excitement. "Who'd have thought? Just picked it up off the table and our lives changed. Maybe someone forgot it, but it's ours now." David laughed, hugging her tight. I stood still on the staircase. What started with a returned bicycle was turning into a storm I'd never imagined. I said nothing. I just watched the two people I'd supported for 8 years dancing around my kitchen as if fate had handed them a reward. I closed my eyes and told myself, "Stay quiet, Margaret. Let them think they've won." I wanted to see how far their greed would take them and whether on that road they'd have enough conscience to realize the ticket was never theirs. About an hour later, I heard cars pulling up outside, nosy neighbors arriving after hearing about the lottery family, laughter, doors slamming, glasses clinking. I looked out the window and saw Vanessa showing off, waving the ticket like a trophy, and David beside her, smiling awkwardly. By noon, there was a hard knock on my door. Vanessa stood there, arms crossed, lips curled. "Start packing. We're moving and we don't need any dead weight coming along." I didn't grasp it at first. "Dead weight?" I repeated, my voice steady. "Yeah, we're buying a mansion on Kiowa Island. It wouldn't make sense for you to come. At your age, it's better to find a decent nursing home. They'll take care of you there." I looked her in the eye. "This is my house, Vanessa. Used to be, Margaret," she said, emphasizing each word. "Now we have a new life, and you're not part of it." Then she yanked open the closet and started throwing my things. Dresses, the wedding photo, a pottery vase I made when I was young. Everything went crashing onto the street below, dishes shattering on the sidewalk. I stood there silent while neighbors gathered and whispered. David stood on the threshold, hands in his pockets, face pale, but he didn't step in to stop his wife. "Vanessa, stop," he muttered weakly. But she didn't listen. "We don't need to do charity for you anymore," she shouted as if she wanted the whole neighborhood to hear. The words felt like a knife in my chest. I quietly bent down, picked up the shattered wedding frame, and wiped the dust off with my sleeve. Dorothy from across the street hurried over to help me gather things, but I stopped her. "Thank you, but I can do it." I collected what was still intact, a few changes of clothes, the wedding photo, and a small box holding Rob's ring. When a beat-up yellow cab pulled up, I stood, took a long breath. I turned to David, my son, whom I'd once believed would protect his mother for life. "You're not going to say anything?" I asked, calm and firm. He looked down. "Vanessa just went a little too far." "Mom, no." "David," I said, "this is the choice you two made." I walked toward the gate, then stopped. Vanessa stood there, arms crossed, still wearing that triumphant smile. I looked straight at her. "Did you read the name on the ticket?" For a split second, that smile stalled. A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. Then she quickly feigned disdain. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I didn't answer. I opened the cab door, put my suitcase in the trunk, and told the driver softly, "Anywhere with the cheapest rooms nearby." As the car pulled away, I checked the rearview mirror. David stood frozen on the steps. Lily and Noah pressed to the upstairs window, eyes red. Vanessa turned away, pretending to be on the phone, but I could see her shoulders tighten. The room I rented sat above a French bakery in downtown Charleston. It barely fit a twin bed, a wobbly wooden table, and a window stuck in its frame. The smell of butter and fresh-baked bread rose from downstairs, seeping into my hair and clothes. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my bag, and took out a paper folded in quarters. The purchase receipt. The scrolled Margaret Thornton in the signature box was still clear. I ran my finger over the name and heard Rob's voice in my ear. "Always sign your name, Maggie. People can forget everything else, but a signature never lies." I smiled faintly. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but in that tiny room, I felt a strange peace. They thought I'd lost, but really, the game had only just begun. After Rob was laid to rest, the house was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking all night. I missed him, his tall, slender frame, the way he grumbled when I added extra salt to the she-crab soup, that raspy laugh every early morning. Widowhood at 55 taught me to speak less and keep small rituals to feel like he was still around, pouring 2 cups of coffee each morning, straightening the armchair by the fireplace, sometimes whispering, "I'm okay, Rob," just to hear my own voice break the stillness. Then one February night in a downpour, David showed up. He stood on the porch, soaked, gripping a suitcase. Behind him was Vanessa, makeup smeared, eyes red. "Mom, we lost the apartment. My company folded. The landlord wants rent now. We can't swing it." I opened the door without further questions and nodded. "Come in. This house always has room for you." Vanessa thanked me, voice trembling. She was young, beautiful, and knew how to draw sympathy. That day, I believed I was doing the right thing. I couldn't have imagined that David's just a few months would stretch into 8 years. 8 years of being the help in the very house with my name on the deed. At first, things seemed fine. I gave them the big downstairs room, the one Rob loved for its east-facing windows. "Morning sun is good for the baby," I said. David squeezed my hand and smiled. "Thanks, Mom. I'll pay you back soon." But soon never came, after Lily was born, then Noah 2 years later. Vanessa didn't return to work. David bounced between jobs, some months bringing home nothing. I covered every utility bill, groceries, and the homeowner's insurance with my teacher's pension and what little savings Rob had left. I didn't regret it. I believed family love balances itself, that when they got stable, they'd lift me up in return. I remembered Rob's words before he died. "If you can, don't let our kid know hunger. Maggie." So I did everything to keep the house warm. Mornings, I woke at 5, made breakfast for everyone, packed David's lunch, and took Lily to preschool. Afternoons, I did laundry, cooked dinner, and rocked Noah to sleep. Everything ran like a clock I wound with my own hands. I also kept helping others in the community. I helped Dorothy Martinez repair her fence after storms. I brought sandwiches to the homeless man on the corner. I volunteered at the church with Pastor Williams, folding bulletins and arranging flowers. Vanessa never noticed. To her, I was invisible unless she needed something. Then one day, Vanessa said, "Mom, I need a quiet place to work. Maybe you could move up to the attic." I hesitated. The attic was a storage space, low ceiling, sweltering in summer. But she said it in that syrupy tone. "It's more private up there." I forced a smile. "If it's convenient for you, do it." I didn't know that decision pushed me to the top floor of my own house and pushed me out of the role of mother in my family. From then on, I officially became Miss Margaret upstairs. Vanessa reorganized the kitchen and labeled everything. Top shelf for the kids, bottom shelf for David's snacks. That cabinet is where you can keep your tea. I didn't object, but I felt like a boarder. That winter, she started hosting adults-only dinners. I still cooked and set the table, but when dinner began, Vanessa would smile and say, "Mom, I saved you a plate in the kitchen. We need to discuss work." I stepped out, closed the kitchen door, and ate alone under the yellow light. From the living room came laughter, clinking glasses, and Vanessa talking like the lady of the house. When Lily started talking, Vanessa taught her to call me Miss Margaret instead of Grandma. Grandma sounds odd. Miss Margaret is younger and more polite. I laughed it off, but that night I cried in the bathroom. The next day I still made my granddaughter's milk as if nothing had happened. In the 3rd year, David switched to part-time engineering. I asked about his pay. He avoided my eyes. "Enough to get by, Mom." I knew it wasn't true, but didn't press. I kept paying for electricity, water, health insurance, and sometimes slipped in extra for Lily's tuition. By the 4th year, Vanessa began setting rules. "Mom, no sweets for the kids at night. Mom, the house needs to be spotless. Mom, towels should be folded this way, not the old way." Each thing sounded small, but together they cut like 1,000 paper knives. Once I made Rob's she-crab soup. The smell filled the kitchen. David breathed in deeply. "Man, it's been a while." Vanessa frowned. "Shellfish is full of cholesterol. David, you don't want to die young like your dad, do you?" The table fell silent. I murmured, "Your dad ate this to 87 and was still healthy." She smirked. "Different times. Mom." After that dinner, I understood. In this house, I was no longer allowed to cook from memory. David wasn't heartless, just weak. When I said Vanessa was going too far, he sighed. "She's under a lot of pressure. Mom?" Sometimes I overheard Vanessa on the phone with friends. "I'm living with my mother-in-law. It's so hard. She interferes in everything." Each time I wondered who she was talking about because I hardly meddled in anything anymore. I stood behind the curtain, heart pounding. Not from fear, but because I realized I'd given them too much, piece by piece, until they believed everything they had was theirs by right. That summer, I started journaling. Every night, I opened an old leather notebook. The first line was always the same: "Day of patience." I didn't write much more. Just small notes. Vanessa nagged about towels. David forgot to pick up Lily. Noah was sick. I stayed up all night. Tiny crooked lines like the trace of someone fading from her own life. Even so, one thing in me never went out. Tenderness. I loved David. I loved Lily and Noah. I even loved Vanessa, though she hurt me. Maybe because I believed people can change, that one day they'd understand I did everything out of love. But patience has limits. 3 days after they won, the phone in my rented room rang off the hook at 7 in the morning. I didn't pick up in time before it rang again, urgent, as if someone were racing the clock. "This is James Mitchell, counsel for the South Carolina Education Lottery," a calm baritone said. "I need to verify a few details about the lottery ticket registered to Margaret Thornton. Is now a good time?" I paused, heart quickening. "Yes, I'm the one who bought that ticket." Papers rustled on his end. "We've matched the signature, serial number, and our system records. The ticket was registered under the name Margaret Thornton, former Charleston address. Correct?" "Correct." "Then congratulations. You're the grand prize winner, $92 million. I was quiet for a few seconds, not because I was surprised, but because a strange feeling rose in me. Not exactly joy, not shock. More like when a storm you saw from miles away finally arrives. Mr. Mitchell continued, his tone turning serious. "But I need you to be aware third parties have contacted the commission claiming to be the real owner of the ticket. A woman named Vanessa Chen Thornton." I closed my eyes and smiled. I'm guessing she didn't forget the hyphenated last name. "Not at all," he said, a bit surprised at my composure. "She claims the ticket was bought with marital funds and that you, pardon my bluntness, are no longer competent to manage assets." I let out a small laugh. They haven't changed. When they can't take something, they try to convince others I'm not smart enough to keep it. I heard typing on his end. "Could you confirm a few items so we can protect your legal rights? The back signature, your ID number, and proof of purchase time." I opened my wallet and pulled out the receipt I'd sealed between 2 laminates. I have the receipt, Sullivan's Quick Stop, purchase time, 8:17 p.m., Friday, March 18th. The serial number matches the ticket. I also have copies of my ID and the store camera will show it. I spoke clearly without a hint of hesitation. On the other end, Mr. Mitchell's voice dropped, impressed. "Excellent. That's sufficient to affirm you as the lawful owner. However, I should warn you, these folks seem ready to cause trouble. They may push rumors that you're confused or even forge medical records." I sighed, but didn't waver. "Don't worry. I'm used to their labeling games. In my life, I've had many tags. One more won't matter." A beat of silence. Then he said slowly, "You're the calmest person I've ever told they've won $92 million. I gave a small smile, because to me, the real prize isn't the money. It's the truth. I closed the notebook and dialed Dorothy Martinez, my neighbor of 28 years. Dorothy is the kind of woman everyone respects. Serious, fair, and allergic to show-offs. Lorraine, good Lord, where are you? The whole neighborhood's talking about your lottery win. I knocked a few times and only saw your daughter-in-law. She said you went on vacation." I laughed. "Yeah, I'm on vacation somewhere with no air conditioning and a smell of bread in my hair. Dorothy, I need a favor. Watch the house for a few days. Note dates, plates, what cars show up. I want to see how fast they burn through cash." Dorothy was quiet a few seconds, then asked softly, "What are you going to do, Margaret?" "I'm not going to do anything. I just want the truth to surface at the right time, in the right place." In the afternoon, I stopped by Palmetto State Bank and opened a small safe deposit box. The young teller asked, "What will you be storing, ma'am?" "My future," I said. placing inside the original receipt a photocopy of the ticket and copies of my ID. I kept scans and a few photos on my phone. A kind young woman at the bank helped me learn how to scan documents properly. I'd never been good with technology, but I was determined. Sometimes justice needs to be kept in more than one drawer. I walked back and stopped at a sidewalk cafe. It was small, with just a few people reading the paper. I ordered a hot black coffee, pulled out my notebook, and began to write. Saturday, 10 in the morning. They still think I'm weak. They don't know the ticket has already spoken for me. I'm not running, I'm preparing. Every lie is a trap, and all I have to do is wait for the snap. Just 3 days after the win, Vanessa started performing like a star. She made a new social media account called The Lucky Chen Thorntons. On flashy live streams, she wore an ivory silk dress, held a glass of wine, and smiled, sweet as sugar. Life can be very fair, she told thousands of viewers. If you do the right thing, the universe will send a reward. I watched that video on my old phone in the rented room, half amused and half heartsick. On her live stream, she said, "My mother-in-law once promised to gift the ticket to the family, and we didn't want to accept it, but she insisted." Every line was crafted to sound grateful while planting doubt. I read the comments below. So blessed to have such a generous mother-in-law, and one that stung my eyes. Hope the old lady doesn't try to take back what she gave. That morning, Dorothy called, "Margaret, you won't believe it. The whole neighborhood is buzzing about your house. Furniture trucks, flower deliveries, even a brand new SUV parked right out front. The dealer sticker still on." I chuckled. "I believe it, Dorothy. I even know the color. Black with a silver sheen. Sporty model, right?" She burst out laughing. "Exactly. You're psychic." That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. Her voice was candy sweet, nothing like the tone of someone who'd thrown me out of my own house. "Miss Margaret, I just want a gentle chat. We're family, right?" I stayed silent. "About the ticket, there's probably a small mix-up. I just need you to sign a brief confirmation that it isn't yours. It's only to help the bank process things faster." I gave a small laugh. "Vanessa, when did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" Dead silence on the other end. The pause stretched so long I could hear her breathing quicken. Then she changed the subject. "People online are saying you're not in a stable situation. I'm just worried someone might take advantage of you." I cut in. "Thanks for the concern, but the only person who's ever taken advantage of me is the one on this call." I hung up. The next night, an email came from James. "Miss Thornton, we just received a letter from the law office of Carter Chen Family Holdings. It alleges you lack the financial and mental capacity to manage assets and requests that financial guardianship be transferred to your son, David Thornton." I wasn't surprised. I knew Vanessa would play this card. Still, I asked, "What do you think, James?" He gave a short laugh. "I think it's a bad play. They don't understand the law. Your signature, the original receipt, the purchase data, they're all solid. If they push this, they'll cause trouble for themselves." "Then let them keep going," I said. "The farther they walk, the more footprints they leave." The next day, Dorothy called again, voice lowered to a near whisper. "Margaret, I've heard them arguing all afternoon." David yelled, "Stop it, this is my mother." And Vanessa screamed, "If you don't take my side, you lose everything." I closed my eyes. Mason's image flashed in my mind, the little boy who once pedaled his bike around the yard, who promised, "I'll protect you forever, Mom." Now he was stuck between his mother and a wife, draining his soul. I didn't blame him. I was just sad. A few days later, David called. His voice shook. "Mom, we already spent it. Deposits on 2 cars, down payment on a mansion at Kiowa Island, signed a furniture contract. Even paid for a Europe trip, all from a pending funds account. They said the money would arrive soon. I sat on the old plastic chair and listened, each word cutting like a blade. So you spent money you didn't have? David was silent. I asked quietly, David, for 8 years, who paid the electric bill? The water, the insurance, the kids' schooling? No answer. I repeated slower. Who? David. After a heavy few seconds, he said softly, You did. Right. Me. The person you said was living off you, the one thrown out of her own house. And now you're calling to ask if the ticket is mine. David's voice shook. I didn't know Vanessa would do that. She said she thought you wouldn't take it back. I gave a small, bitter laugh. She doesn't understand me. David, I can forgive being poor. I can't forgive deception. I paused, then said slowly, You want to talk? Fine. Come to where I am. Today. David was quiet. I heard an engine start on his end. Mom, I'll come. Good, but bring the truth. No gifts, no excuses. Just the truth. A knock sounded right at 2, not early, not late. David stood there, pale, hair mussed, eyes sunken. He glanced around the shabby room, the stained ceiling, the lopsided single bed, then looked back at me, voice tight. I'm sorry, Mom. Just 4 words. But I knew he'd crossed a long night to say them. I motioned to the chair I'd wiped down that morning. Sit. David. This room isn't pretty, but at least it's mine. Not 5 minutes later, Vanessa showed up. Her heels struck sharp on the concrete. A sweet, biting perfume swamped the lingering bread smell from downstairs. She swept in, scanned the room, and smirked. Cozy, isn't it? I calmly set my cup down. It's warm because there are no lies in here. Vanessa, I decided not to drag out the pretending. I'll be brief. This morning, the lottery's attorney confirmed it. The name on the ticket is Margaret Thornton. The payout account is set. The money will hit within 24 hours. The room went still. David swallowed. After a few seconds, Vanessa gave a thin laugh. So you plan to keep it all? I met her eyes. I plan to keep what's mine. David lifted a hand. Mom, I didn't come to fight. Maybe we could make a deal, like a family agreement. I smiled slightly. Sorrow from 8 buried years behind it. A deal. David, I've been making deals for 8 years. I dealt by staying silent when insulted. I dealt by paying bills when you were unemployed. And the final deal, letting you throw my things out and saying nothing. Vanessa sat straight. If we cooperate, everyone wins. We could buy a big house. You could live with us. Have your own private suite, little kitchen, own bath, every comfort. I lifted my head, voice cold as steel. Sounds more like a dog kennel out back than a mother's room. She froze, color draining. I opened a drawer and took out a folded paper, the expense log I'd kept for 8 years. I laid it on the table. First question. Who threw my things out the window that morning? She rolled her eyes. I just lost my temper a little. So you admit it. Second question. Who called me a freeloader? She gave a bitter smile. What do you want? An apology? I want the truth. David drew a breath, voice shaking. Mom, yes. Vanessa said it. I heard everything. Vanessa snapped toward him, eyes blazing. What are you doing? I'm telling the truth, David said, and for the first time in years, there was courage in his tone. I unfolded the paper and read line by line. Electric bill, $118 a month, 8 years. Water, about 42. Roof repair in 2019, $1,600. Lily and Noah's school costs, total $19,400. Groceries, medicine, household goods, can't even count. I folded the paper and set it down. All from my pension. I'm not saying this to collect. I'm reminding you these numbers are evidence of kindness, not obligation. Vanessa started to fray. If you don't sign a transfer, I'll sue you for asset fraud. David flinched. Vanessa, stop! But I was already on my feet, calmer than even I expected. I pointed to the door. You're free to leave. Vanessa, no threats, no theater. The court isn't far. She shot up, eyes burning. You'll regret this. I cut in. No, you will. When you learn money can't buy 1 second of peace, when the kids start asking why Grandma isn't home anymore, then you'll know who's truly pitiable. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then, without a word, she turned, heels hammering the floor, and the door slammed. Just me and David. He bowed his head low. Mom, I don't know what to say. I let it go too far. I looked at my son. Just remember, every mistake has a price. The only price I want from you is the truth. He nodded, eyes wet. Can you forgive me? I sighed softly. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, David. It's remembering and choosing not to take revenge. That evening, David came back alone. I poured tea and said softly, I will help you, but not for you, for Lily and Noah. I spoke slowly, each word clear. First condition, you end this toxic marriage. Second condition, you apologize publicly on the front steps. Third condition, you go to counseling for single fathers. David didn't speak for a full minute. Then he exhaled. What about Vanessa? I looked toward the window. She'll do what people like her always do. Scream, blame, threaten. But if she wants a fight, I'm ready. As if on cue, a hard knock hit the door. Vanessa walked in. Perfect. Mommy and son plotting again. David stood. Mom, I choose you and the kids. Vanessa looked at her husband, eyes rimmed red. You'll regret this. Mason didn't answer. His silence was the reply she refused to accept. She yanked the door. I won't let this go. You'll lose everything. I just watched her go and said, No, Vanessa, you're the one who's losing because you've thrown away the one thing money can't buy. Respect. The next afternoon, James and I arrived at the South Carolina Education Lottery office. The headquarters stood in a sleek glass building, sky blue reflections running across it. Inside, a staffer led us to a verification room. A middle-aged woman in a gray suit inspected the ticket under a special light, matched the signature and serial number, then pulled up security footage from Sullivan's Quick Stop. The screen showed a silver-haired woman in a brown coat signing the back of the ticket. The signature is a complete match. The ticket is valid. We'll seal and process the payout today. I studied the list of payout options and said clearly, I'd like an initial portion now, enough to cover immediate needs. The remainder goes into a trust named the Robert and Margaret Thornton Trust. James smiled. I'll finalize the trust paperwork today. It'll be a private trust. I nodded. Exactly. I've had enough noise. I want quiet, not spotlights. 2 weeks later, Vanessa filed suit officially. The complaint was 95 pages. She accused me of manipulating David, psychologically influencing him to break up the family, and lacking capacity to control a large asset. James lifted the file and raised an eyebrow. This suit won't just fail. It'll expose her completely. I nodded. I just want everything seen in the light. The first hearing opened. The judge was Catherine Reynolds, a woman in her 50s with a sharp eye and an even voice. Vanessa sat across the aisle in a pristine white dress, perfect hair. She held David's hand, but his eyes were cast down. Judge Reynolds started with assessments of living conditions. Elena Rodriguez, the social worker, reported my former rented room was neat and safe, though modest. The new house I'd leased at Folly Beach was clean, comfortable. suitable for an older adult with space for children. By contrast, Vanessa's residence was under an unpaid mortgage with a history of noise complaints. Next came the witnesses. Dorothy Martinez took the stand with a frayed little notebook. She recounted hearing Vanessa insult me, the nights I quietly hauled trash, the bills I paid. When the judge asked why she remembered so clearly, Dorothy said, "Because I watched a woman hold a family together with kindness and get pushed out the door by the same people." Then 2 other neighbors spoke. Mr. O'Brien from Sullivan's Quick Stop confirmed, "I bought the ticket, signed it, and kept the receipt." Pastor Williams testified, "Margaret has been a pillar of our community for 30 years. Finally." James played video from Dorothy's porch camera, Vanessa throwing my things onto the street, shouting, "Go die in a nursing home." The courtroom went silent. Vanessa bowed her head. David trembled, tears streaming. Judge Reynolds tapped the gavel softly, voice steady. "Verbal abuse, control, and defamation of an elder without physical violence still constitute serious psychological abuse." When it was David's turn, he laid out a plan for single fatherhood, Lily and Noah's school schedules, a detailed budget, proof he'd enrolled in parenting counseling. The judge asked, "Do you have the financial ability to care for both children?" David answered, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm back to full-time work. My mother set up an education trust for the kids, but she doesn't interfere in my personal life." When it was my turn, the judge asked, "Miss Thornton, do you have anything to say about custody?" I stood, looked around the room, and said slowly, "I'm not here to win or lose. I just want my 2 grandkids to be safe and grow up in a home without fear. Whichever side can give them that, that's the side I'll support." The courtroom went silent. The judge nodded, her eyes softening. After 2 days of hearings, the ruling was announced. The court granted primary custody to David and gave Vanessa supervised visitation. She was required to attend a 6-month counseling program. As for the suit over the lottery prize, the judge dismissed it entirely and formally reprimanded Vanessa for deliberate defamation. Judge Reynolds read the final lines, firm and clear. The court recognizes Margaret Thornton as the legal owner of the winning ticket and is a victim of defamation. Truth does not need a defender. It only needs time. And time has done its work. Vanessa bowed her head, gripping the chair, face white as paper. David said nothing. He just held my hand tight, the grip I'd waited 8 years to feel. When we stepped out of the courthouse, wind from Folly Beach blew hard, bringing ocean salt and a cool mist. My silver hair flew wild, but I didn't smooth it down. For the first time in my life, I let the wind do what it wanted, a sign of freedom. I moved into a little house at Folly Beach on a gentle morning in early June. The sea was pale blue, the waves calm, and the kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon under fresh paint. I chose cream walls and set lavender pots by the window. The house was small but enough for 1 person, a bright living room, a warm kitchen, a bedroom facing the bay. I rehung the old photos, Rob's kind smile, little David with a kite, Lily and Noah in my lap when they were tiny. On the first day, David called, "Mom, can I bring the kids over this weekend?" I smiled. "The door's always open, but bring your dad's she crab soup recipe." Saturday afternoon, with gold light pouring over the bay, David drove up. Lily and Noah leapt from the car, their laughter ringing across the yard. David rolled up his sleeves in the kitchen. I watched him clumsily chop onions and taste the soup. "Mom, I don't remember the exact amounts of milk and cream," I answered. "Rob never measured. He cooked by feel and by love." After dinner, I took Lily outside. I opened a small box and brought out the coral pink bicycle, the dream left unfinished years ago. Lily squealed, "Grandma, really? This is for me?" I nodded, eyes stinging. "Yes, for you, but there's a condition. You have to keep a promise. Never let anyone make you believe you don't deserve good things." She hugged me, then hopped on and pedaled around the yard. Her laughter rang all afternoon like a bell, washing the old bitterness clean. Meanwhile, Noah sat in the living room, carefully building with Legos on the wooden table Rob once sanded by hand. Each time he finished a model, he ran to show me, "Look, Grandma, I matched the picture." I patted his head and thought, "Rob, do you see? The kids still have your skillful hands." David started a support group for single dads. Most evenings after, he'd share. "They're teaching me how to set boundaries, how to say no without guilt." I smiled. "You're learning what your father taught his whole life. Being a good man doesn't require shouting, just knowing right from wrong." I also set clear financial boundaries. Any help from me needs receipts, a purpose, and a clear commitment. I won't use money to patch over mistakes anymore. David understood. He nodded without pride. At last. He'd grown up. In the fall, I started a small project, Hands for Home, a program helping older adults who are exploited or abandoned by family find temporary housing. I invited Dorothy to join. We repainted an old dining table she donated. "This table will be the first place where anyone can sit and eat without being insulted," I said. When the paint dried, we centered it in the living room and set a velvet red rose arrangement, Rob's favorite. That table later became our weekend gathering spot where I heard my grandkids laugh, David talk kitchen tricks, Dorothy chat about the neighbors, and Pastor Williams stopped by to share blessings. One rainy afternoon, Vanessa appeared at my door, umbrella frayed, eyes bruised with exhaustion. "I need help," she said quietly. I invited her onto the porch, but kept the door pulled to. Boundaries aren't just a latch, they're a choice. She sat on the wooden chair Dorothy had painted, hands trembling. "Creditors are after me. I lost my job. I don't know where to start." I looked at her. The arrogance was gone, just a woman depleted by her own choices. "You want a quick fix, don't you?" Vanessa nodded, lips quivering. I answered slowly, "There are no shortcuts, Vanessa. Only responsibility and repair." From a drawer, I took a small envelope. Inside were no bills, only a list of job centers and counseling groups. "These are contacts and addresses. They'll help if you truly want to start over." She held it and looked up. "Can I see the kids?" The court was clear. If you complete the counseling sessions, you can have supervised visits. David won't block it, and neither will I. I added, gentle but firm. "I won't hand you cash, not $1, but if you need a hot meal or honest advice, this porch stays open as long as you walk in with honesty." Silence stretched. Then Vanessa choked out, "I'm sorry, Margaret." I looked at her a long time. "I hear you and I accept it in my own way." She left when the rain eased. Her small figure faded down the road. I knew the loop of resentment had snapped, at least on my end. That night, we ate she-crab soup together. David shared about his support group, helping another single dad find work. Lily told us how she fell off her bike, scraped her knee, but got up on her own. "Grandma," I didn't cry. I remembered what you said. No one stays down if they know how to stand up. Noah sat with hands folded, eyes closed. I pray my mom get better soon. The room fell quiet. I heard wind slip through the window and smelled cinnamon steaming from the pot. After dinner, I stood on the porch, watching Folly Beach sink into dark red sunset. Ripples glinted like shards of glass, beautiful and a reminder that anything once broken can shine again if the light comes from within. I thought of Rob. If he were here, he'd probably smile and say, "See, Margaret, in the end, we are our choices." And I had chosen self-respect. clarity, and love with boundaries. That night, I wrote the last lines in my notebook. No one can start a new chapter by rereading the old one forever. Today I close the book, not to end it, but to begin again. I sat down my pen and looked up at the ceiling. The rain had stopped. Far off, David's porch light still glowed warm, not bright, but steady. Lily and Noah were surely asleep, and Vanessa somewhere might be learning how to be a decent mother again. I smiled and lit a small candle before Rob's photo. "Love," I whispered. "I've gone farther than the pain, and I've come back to myself. Thank you for sitting beside me all the way to this moment." Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with fists or words, but with patience, truth, and the quiet strength to stand alone when everyone else walks away. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over bitterness, boundaries over resentment, and self-respect over approval. Money can buy comfort, but it can't buy character. And in the end, the only wealth that matters is the kind you carry in your heart. If you're still here, you've traveled with me through storms and the quiet places only the heart can hear. What city are you watching from? I'd love to know where this story has reached and who's listening with me. If anything in this story touched you, self-respect, resilience, or simply love with limits, leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if you'd like to keep sitting with me in this kitchen where there's hot tea, she-crab soup, and stories of healing, please subscribe and tap the little bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Your presence, wherever you are, warms this kitchen more than any flame ever could.